in a world like none other, there comes one man in search of plastic, in search of cons. He is known as Plasticon. Join him as he brings toys from another dimension to a household near you.
Hey guys, Plasticon here. Been a long time. Yeah, just a little bit. Got a few things here to show you, kind of some stuff I've actually been up to. Times are strange right now, so you know how that goes. The world is really weird right now. I don't really want to get into any of that, but hey, it is what it is. But I did want to show you guys a few things I've been up to lately, because I kind of think some of this stuff needs to be shown to you guys, because it's just stuff that I've been working on. I've got a couple things actually in the works. Besides reviews, I'm honestly working on a comic book, and this comic book's going to kind of more or less touch base with some of the bits and pieces of Generation 2 that wasn't touched, and also kind of pull together some lore and really bring together something a little more fantastic to kind of add to what the story series actually has in the actual comics. Basically, it's going to be pretty interesting. I'm going to be trying to bring in some more of the more alien aspects that were there. Going to try to bring in a little bit more of the G.I. Joe aspects, some of the reason being of why things are going on the way they are within the whole realm. And I just wanted to make something really, really interesting for you guys, so you got something a little different to kind of check out. Like I said, I currently have just gotten a program for my computer. It's called Comic Life. It's actually really cool. Allows me to upload any kind of photos I decide to take and then turn them into comic strips. And it's really neat. I'm going to be doing, like I said, a lot of stuff with it, so it will be a very time-consuming process, so you guys will have to bear with me on that. But this is kind of a little thing I just wanted to just throw together to show you guys some of the stuff I've been up to. I'll take you over here to the table here in a minute, and I'll show you a few things that I've actually created recently, and a few things that are going to be used probably in some of my comics, and maybe some little quick videos that I decide to put up every now and then, because you guys know how it is with this. I know this is like literally like the third vlog kind of thing, or whatever you want to call it, because that other one, that was just a thing I put together with some old footage I had for my car. I just thought it was really cool. I figured I'd show it to you guys, because I really hadn't had time really to do a whole lot of filming lately, and I was running out of stuff, and I was like, well, this would work to kind of put something together so you guys can actually still see that, hey, I'm still around, I'm still active, I just got a lot going on. Just work, life, you know how it goes. But anyway, I wanted to touch base with you guys and show you some cool stuff, so let's move right over to the table and check it out. So let's check out a backdrop that I decided to make, and this is actually inspired from the Transformers Command Center Stars base. It's a background I actually created. It's made of cardboard and some poster board. I did go ahead and hand draw a lot of stuff on here. I'll show you that bit here in a minute that actually goes to it. But it's very cool. I decided to make it so it was large enough to be in scale with my Generation 2 bots. So they actually look very well with it. It's actually in scale to them. I can bring in combiners, much like Defensor here, and then not look too out of scale. Obviously they're supposed to be fairly large, but you know, this kind of works. And then I can also bring in smaller robots, such as Toxitron, which, you know, he's a little short to be able to reach the consoles, but hey, I thought it was kind of cool because, you know, I did need to put something in here for the actual larger robots to be able to interact with. But this is kind of a cool thing for scaling. I also have a little Micromaster here to show you how that scales with it, along with one of those recent Pretender bots. This is Bludgeon. That's Countdown, if you guys didn't know that, and that's obviously Jazz. But, you know, this kind of shows you a little bit of scaling here. It actually works pretty good with mini bots as well, such as Bumblebee here. So the scaling, I think, is kind of cool. And one thing I do like about this thing is the fact I actually almost have like a transforming element to it. So you can see up here, so it's got an Autobot logo. Well, I can literally slide this portion here over to here, which closes off there, and now it's a Decepticon. So this can actually be used for Autobots or Decepticons, and that's something I really do like about the fact that I made this background like this. It's a very simple background too. It's not anything complex. It's literally just foam core stood up. I drew on it and turned it into this, and I think it's kind of cool how I'm able to just switch from one faction to the other with that. And it kind of changes a little bit of the controls and such, and it shows, like, you know, I got like readings and all this stuff, and kind of take a little closer look. Let me get a few of these things out of the way. I'll show you a little bit more about it. By the way, it does scale fairly good with Diaclone figures, because, you know, if this was actually more or less in scale with the G1 Transformers, that's how small they would be compared to everything else, because, you know, it's kind of how crazy how that works. And then we'll just put Spark Plug over here as well. I mean, you can see it makes these guys look tiny. They should look tiny compared to this, because it's supposed to be a command center for the larger robots. So it works very, very well. I do like it because of that. But let's take a closer look at the actual Stars base itself. I'm going to try to zoom in here on some of this, that way you guys can see it a little clearer. But it is really, really cool what I've done. I do like the fact, and I did have to hand draw all this, by the way. This was all hand drawn. This was not some Photoshop or anything, but it shows that, you know, I actually hand drawn and I actually colored a lot of the pieces as well. But it shows, you know, this is kind of like a control panel. This particular control panel here, this is honestly, this is all brought from the Japanese stars. Oops. And here my tripod's not. Oh, there we go. I typed the wrong one. Phil. Anyway. This part here is actually took from the Japanese version of the Stars base, because if you guys know anything about the Stars base, they're very difficult to get hold of because they are nothing but paper or cardboard, and to try acquiring them, they are very expensive. But this section over here, literally this whole section here, I copied from the Japanese Stars base. I also integrated some of the American base into it as well, because the American base actually had a larger piece. Now there's this piece that they had literally had like a doorway that opened up for you to be able to take your figures through, and just simple things like that. It did not have any consoles that actually were attached like this. They actually were almost like little boxes that sat on the ground. And the Japanese one actually flipped down, because it almost opened up like a flip book, because it literally, you'd open it like this, it'd have a flooring that come down, and then it had like a three-dimensional laser gun, because as you can see over here, I've got a little bit of a laser gun kind of drawn on here, which is supposed to be like more or less like a repair bay, which is what it's supposed to be. And it's kind of cool. I do like the way I've done this, and I did try to add some shading here and there Just, you know, some simple stuff. Nothing really crazy and complex, because I wanted it to kind of match a lot of the other backgrounds I do create. And I did like the way I kind of put this together. Now everybody's probably wondering what this crazy thing is here. This is actually supposed to be a crane arm that would slide back and forth. And on the actual Stars base that was released in the US, it actually has the crane arm thing goes back and forth. And this stuff isn't functioning, by the way. This is all like imaginative stuff, the things that you use your imagination with, because everything there was cut out with, like, you know, paper and just drawn on, which was really cool. So I kind of wanted to do something similar to what the original toys were like, because to face it, I mean, backgrounds are really hard to get a hold of, especially for Transformers, and it's kind of cool to try to piece something like this together. I'm going to pull a couple of these console pieces off so that way you can actually see what the button layout looks like on these, which they're just slotted in. But here's one of the main console pieces, which is kind of cool. I've literally drawn it out and everything. And this is actually copied from the American one. And then there's the Japanese console, which is a little more complex. Not by a lot, but does have some differences there, which is kind of neat. I do like the fact that I, you know, took some time and did this. And these are some things I worked on whenever I was off for a few months. You guys probably remember last year I took some time off because of my PTSD kicking in and such. And this was one of the big projects I worked on, because this project was, it kind of made me have to focus. And I did this before I started working on any of the other ones. Now, I'm about to show you guys some really interesting stuff that I started working on. And I'm not 100% done with a whole lot of this yet, but some of this stuff is fairly, I would say fairly new that I started working on. You have to bear with me here because I have to kind of dig through the little baggie here. I put some stuff in. But I do have some stuff here I started working on. I got a little plastic Jeep here that I acquired some very small like plastic army men. And I actually had to paint the star on this one along with the headlight portion. And I painted the taillights because it didn't have any detail whatsoever like that. So it kind of added a little bit to it for a G.I. Joe Vamp. And I wanted to add another vehicle to that series, so I made the Dragonfly, which I found this along with the lot, which was really cool. So I went ahead and painted his little tips here red, just like the real Dragonfly. It's got a nice star on there, and then I also painted the tip of the helicopter black there, so that way it kind of adds to the whole illusion of it being the Dragonfly, which is neat because, you know, the Dragonfly was a very iconic helicopter in your G.I. Joe universe. And another thing I got after that was this. This is a troop transport, and I actually had to paint everything here. You see where it got the blacks painted here and the silver, along with the whole entire the tent portion, and then just a little bit of red on the taillights. Not a whole lot, but kind of just a little bit there. And these are kind of neat. And, you know, I know some of this stuff is not the best scale in the world for certain things, but I personally think these work very well, especially for your Transformers, because honestly, if you think about it, you can put Spike here next to the Jeep. He kind of scales with it just fine. And then you've got a Diaclone figure here. He scales just fine with it, which is something I really did like. And then I decided to paint another Jeep, but I did this one here more of a brown because that way it had a sandy color. So that way I have another G.I. Joe Jeep, which is different. Which I like having different Jeeps. I like having different variety. And here's a little tank that I got where I actually painted the treads black because the treads were not black on this thing at all. I do like this thing. It's kind of like a mini Mobat tank. It's kind of how I see it. And yet, I do have another one of my G.I. Joe Jeeps. Just like the other one. So I got 2 Vamps, technically 3. And then we're going to go into the big guy. The Mauler. I did paint the Mauler. I did want this to kind of be more or less a little larger. It kind of works with the fact that the Mauler was always a large tank in G.I. Joe, and I think it's a very, very cool idea to have just these little, they're plastic army men things, and I thought it would be really cool to kind of add these to the collection, so that way I can get my G.I. Joe aspect going on along with all my G2 stuff. I do happen to have a G2, or not G2, but a plastic stealth fighter here. That's actually surprisingly in scale with like Skyjack here. Like, seriously, if you look at the size of the cockpits are identical in size and everything. It's insane how these actually were in scale with this. So I was like, that's just amazing. It's so cool that I'm able to actually have these in scale. So then within that lot of plastic army men stuff, I got these planes as well, which are really, really cool, which I think will work really good for like strikers. I debated on color or painting them, but I don't think I'm going to. And this is just the G.I. Joe aspect, guys. I've done Cobra as well, for you guys out there that love your Cobra figures. But I'm going to show you some of the figures I actually painted, which are teeny tiny things, and they're great because I like the fact that I'm going to have like little G.I. Joe guys to go with everything. But here's just a standard G.I. Joe Trooper, because you just need your G.I. Joe soldiers. Here's another one I've got that's got a rocket launcher. And by the way, when I got these, the backs of I painted the black portions on these, so that did not come like that when I purchased these. And I got these a very long time ago. I just never did get around to painting them until just recently. Now here's one I think a lot of you guys will remember. Here's Scarlett. I decided to paint her up to make her fit in very, very well with the Joes. And I got Shipwreck here, which I thought was really cool that I was able to add him into the mixture of the Joes as well. And keep in mind, when I got these were like completely non-painted, so. Now obviously you got some snake eyes here, because who doesn't like snake eyes? You gotta have snake eyes. I'll see him in the back of the Jeep back here, because I'm kind of running out of room. And here's Duke. Looks like his paint got a little scratched. Might have to fix that, but got a Duke going on here. General Hawk. Decided to paint him up. As you can see, though, I painted like even like their belt and everything. I do like these guys. They're really, really, really cool. And good old Roadblock. Had to add him into the group because, you know, it's Roadblock. Who doesn't like Roadblock? And then primarily all the rest of them I've got in my hand are just kind of more or less the generic soldiers themselves, just with black boots and such, because I just kind of needed some generic fill-ins for now until I actually get around to painting a lot more of the Joes, because you know the Joes are cool and who doesn't like the G.I. Joe? Anyway, let me clear this off real quick and then I will be right back with the Cobra stuff. Okie dokie, I'm back. Well, let's check this stuff out that I have. I decided to make a Mobat or a G.I. Joe or Cobra variant of the Mobat, which basically had the red cannon and the red gunnery thing up here on top. And I gave him a little bit of red of, you know, red rims. He does have a little bit of banged up there, but you know, that's okay, because, you know, I honestly haven't gotten around to clear coating these yet, which I will eventually. But I do kind of like the fact that it's a very matte finish. Actually looks really good on them. So that's more or less a Crimson Guard tank. This in here would be a Cobra Striker, which has got the missile launcher on the back, which is kind of cool. And it's just like a little bitty red Jeep, or black Jeep, red and black Jeep, red Jeep. Jeez, am I colorblind or what? Anyway, it's kind of cool. They actually have little things here that move around, so it does allow posability, which is kind of nice, especially for this kind of stuff. And then I've got another variant of that same Jeep, except for it's got a searchlight on the back, which is kind of cool. It gives us like a little bit of a different play value and photography and such. And this in here is actually just carrying a missile on the back, which, you know, why not? We can have one that's carrying armor nuts. That doesn't hurt anything. Because those right there are just pretty much just little stingers. And then this right here I'm more or less going to be using as a Cobra Hiss, because, you know, it's just a little bitty black tank. And I thought it was cool and works very, very well. The turn does not turn on this, unfortunately, but that's fine, because, you know, you don't really necessarily need that. And then I've got a truck here for Cobra, so that way they actually have a troop carrying transport thing, because, you know, they would obviously have something like that. And then I've got another jet here, which I'm actually going to be using for Cobra, because I thought it was kind of cool. I debated on actually giving this thing scales, so that way it looks kind of like reptilian. And then the same thing with this one here, which would be more or less a glider, because it only has the single wheel on the front, so that's kind of cool. But the real thing I've been working on was the actual action figures. I cannot remember the name of the scientist from the G2 comic, but this is supposed to be her, which I think I've done a pretty good job of trying to represent who she looks like. I've also got a Cobra Trooper, which I have obviously, you know, had to paint these guys blue. And how about a bat? Because, you know, you have to have your bats. You can't not have your bats. He does have yellow boots as well. And you gotta think, these guys are teeny tiny, so it wasn't like it was an easy thing for me to paint. And then I've got a Crimson Guard here, which is more the officer variety. Then a Crimson Trooper, because, you know, black guns and such. Then I decided to make me some Cobra Vipers, which I've got one right here, which is really cool. Do you like my Vipers? Because why not? You have to have some Vipers. He even got the little bit of red on his pants. And the red gloves. And then I've got... here he is. Destro. Had to make a Destro. Because why not? Need a Destro. You always need Destro. Can't not have a Destro. Then, you know, having Snake Eyes earlier, well, can't have Snake Eyes without Storm Shadow. So I made a Storm Shadow, which I thought was kind of cool. Oops. Keep in mind, these guys are only like an inch tall. So they're teeny tiny. And last but definitely not least, we always have to have good old Cobra Commander. Because, you know, Cobra Commander is actually needed for everything. Because, you know, he's in charge of his troops. I do have a lot more of the other soldiers, just generic soldiers painted to match these guys. But this is the primary amount of them I actually have. Because these are going to be perfect for, like, small little shots and stuff for like comic books and such. So I didn't want anything crazy articulated. And I know a lot of you guys will be out there like, why didn't you buy a bunch of the Creo figures that came out, or some of the older Micro Machine figures that were about an inch high themselves, or any of the other G.I. Joe things that came out in the past? Well, my biggest reasoning is, first off, budgeting. Budgeting is a big thing, especially when it comes to this kind of stuff that I try to do. Because, face it, not everybody's made of money. And second off, honestly, I thought it was cool to be able to just kind of build my own thing versus it just being a thing that was always kind of given to me. So this allows me to be able to take more of a creative aspect and add it to it. And it also allows me to be able to be more creative, flexibly, and not have to worry about anything crazy going on. Because, you know, these are just little 1-inch figures. Kind of give you a bit of a size comparison here. Here's Spike. Or not Spike, but Sparkplug, standing right next to Destro. And then Diaclone figure, which, like I said, they're more or less in scale. And then we're going to add in, you know, your little Power of the Primes Pretender guys, which, you know, they're big and bulky, but they're not, like, insanely huge. I'm going to put Toxitron in here because to kind of show you what a Spy Changer looks like next to him. And then we got Bumblebee here. And then how about Micromaster? Good old Countdown. So it kind of shows you, you know, the scale is not like insanely off, to be honest, because these Diaclone figures and even Sparkplug there are actually able to sit inside the vehicles that are supposed to be your Diaclone vehicles, much like Jazz, which is right here. Which, to be honest, maybe a little ridiculous, but face it, scale wasn't always the biggest thing in G.I. Joe, but to be honest, the same thing with G.I. Joe and Transformers. I think it's cool to have a little bit of a mixture of the two together. I could put a Metro Titan's little sidekick there. That's the G2 version. Yes, that's why it's like a blazing pink. He's very cool. I do like him. I will get around to actually reviewing that thing someday. And for you guys out there that love your Headmasters, let's see what Headmasters look like next to them. Trying to pull Fangory's head over here off real quick. And here's one of your Headmasters, your Headmaster Juniors. That's how tall they are compared to it. And then we get Snapdragon over here. There's G2 Snapdragon standing next to him. So it kind of shows you a little bit of the scaling. The scaling is, as far as I'm concerned, pretty good. I don't actually mind it at all. I think it works very well for what I've got going on here. And, you know, this is more or less some stuff that I've been into putting together lately. And I've got into this because, you know, like I said, my issue, my PTSD kind of reared up there for a good 3 months, and I decided that I would do something productive with that time I had off, other than go curl up in a corner and feel like the world is coming down on me. Just because we can, let's put Action Master Shockwave here, along with them. That way you guys can get a bit of a look at what that kind of looks like. I do absolutely love my G2 stuff, you guys all know that. And I'm going to clear this off real quick because I have something really special to show you guys. So, be right back. Okay, got something special to show you guys, and this is a custom of a G2 Sandstorm I've made. Obviously, it's supposed to be Dirge. And I did a very good job on him. I think he looks very cool. I haven't gotten around to actually doing a review of these guys yet because, you know, face it, life's gotten in the way or anything, but I did want to kind of show you guys a couple things I had been working on during my little situation I had going on with my PTSD. I actually decided to make some of the G2 unreleased jets, and this happens to be one of the big ones that I wanted to do. And you can obviously tell I've painted everything. It's got all the crazy camo and everything going on his wings. Even here, even says DC on here like it would actually on the Sandstorm mold, which was really cool. I did decide to do that, and it's very cool. I do like this thing a lot. I really do enjoy this Sandstorm / Dirge version of him that I have made. Sorry about the lighting not being the best right now. I've been having issues trying to get my lighting correct in his room, and it's still kind of difficult to do some days. But let's put this on the other side because that isn't the only one I worked on. I worked on several. Let's see, I'll kick his wings back a little further. That way he doesn't topple over on me. Well, you guys have been seeing this whole thing dealing with a prototype version of a, supposed to have been what they call Death Starscream or Black Starscream. Well, no, it wasn't Black Starscream or Death Starscream. Technically, it was Blackout, and that's exactly what I've made here. This is Blackout. It's even got that fade going on his wings with the blue, which I've done a pretty good job with, I think. And like I said, I'll get around to an actual proper review, but I did do the fade on that. I did, you know, obviously gave him the blue wings on the back. He's got the very blue chest piece, and just all around a very cool looking bot, if you ask me. I think this thing turned out phenomenal compared to a lot of the other stuff that I've done out there. I really do like the way he did turn out because, you know, obviously him being black and blue, and that right there is supposed to be Generation 2 Skywarp. That's who that is. Moving on to one of my more complicated ones I did, and this is supposed to be from the jungle camo version of Starscream, but this is obviously going to be Thundercracker. But here's Generation 2 Thundercracker that I've made, and I gave him that tiger striped camo because that actually fits so much better into what it would have been, and honestly it looks really good, especially with the whole ensemble going on here, considering they're all supposed to have some type of military faction color going on. And I gave him the black wings, and he's got the really dark green along with the kind of more or less a orangish beige. And I think it turned out very well. And then finally, we got good old Thrust. And Thrust is done in the more or less an Arctic camo. It's got this whole digital kind of thing going on because this was kind of a new thing toward the tail end of the 90s, early 2000s for military personnel, and that was kind of a thing that started doing, and that's why he's got this really weird digital look, which personally I think it looks very good considering this whole ensemble together looks very cool because you got, you know, you have your more or less, this would be more or less your Marines, this would be your Army, your Navy, and then your Air Force, which I think is very cool how these all more or less fit in with the whole military thing, considering you guys probably know from my background, I am Air Force myself. So I also thought it was really cool to do this, and this was a really, really, really large project I worked on during the time I was off for my PTSD. It was between this, my G.I. Joe stuff I just showed you, and this background that I made. Some stuff that I really wanted to show you guys, to show you that, you know, even though some of you guys out there could be struggling with a lot of different things in this world, there are ways of getting around it. And this happens to be one of them. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I wanted to show you guys a little bit of stuff I've been working on, considering I had a bit of a breakdown there for a while, and this was some stuff that really helped me through, along with my family and along with my other half and friends. So this really does help when it comes to trying to get through mental health types of things, because most people don't realize that PTSD is a form of mental health. Some of it's brought on from the military, being in combat situations and such. And the thing is, there's a lot of people out there that don't really understand that kind of stuff, especially whenever they haven't really been put in that situation. And it's not something I really want to talk about, but it is something I do want to make you guys aware of. And how I handled it was by creating some very, very unique, interesting pieces to add to my entire collection, and also to use for, like I said, that Generation 2 comic thing I'm going to be doing. I want this stuff to actually have a little bit of an impact on the community and kind of help a lot of people with some of the cool things that they probably never really thought of. I do happen to have another friend of mine that's helping me with the writing dealing with this, because I want to be able to make a nice solid writing script for it, so everything turns out really, really cool, especially with a comic book. And I want people to really enjoy this, because I don't want it to just be a one-off type of thing. I want to be able to at least fill in the gap here and there, whenever you actually read the G2 comics, and be able to throw this in the middle, and it makes sense, and then it kind of adds in and enhances the story a little bit. I want it to actually have a little more of a punch, because G2 really didn't get the, I would say, the recognition it really did deserve, because there was a lot of really interesting ideas there that kind of got kicked to the side because of Beast Wars and more or less like the residual fatigue from G1. And I understood why that kind of was that way. There's a lot of people out there who don't realize, well, Machine Wars had zero lore, but it was an entire toy line of like 14 figures or something like that, and very underrated. But there was no comic book, there was no video game, there was no anything. Like back then, video games weren't really a thing for your so-called toy lines, because that's kind of a thing that's showed up here recently, and it hasn't been like, you know, kind of a thing that's, I'd say the toy line thing has probably been something that's pushed more advertising and such in the early 2000s on, because face it, everybody and their dog when they were a kid tried to build a Millennium Falcon out of Lego, and guess what? Lego finally got around and gave us one. Like, I think it was like 99, 98, 99 or something like that. It was somewhere around there. They finally released a Lego Millennium Falcon, and I thought that was kind of cool. But the thing is, with G2 more or less doesn't get the recognition that I don't think that other toy lines tend to get. Now, I do know we're getting a little bit here and there trickling in, but to be honest, who doesn't want to see a modern version of the laser rods? I mean, those are really, really obscure. And the same thing with like all the accelerators and the Sky Scorchers and even the Cyberjets. Those would be really cool to see like modern iterations of. But, you know, we did get a G2 Megatron just recently, along with the G2 Sandstorm through the Pulse thing, which was cool. I personally don't want them because I have my own. I collect more vintage. I like my vintage figures. I like my figures that don't take very long to transform, for me to be able to do my photography and my video stuff, and just for me to play with. Because, face it, I don't have half an hour to an hour to sit there and try to put together a third-party Bruticus or whatever it is. Although they're cool, they take up a lot of room too. And to be honest, my collection is kind of narrowed a lot compared to what it used to. I mean, obviously the 3 shelves I got back here, that's literally it. That's all I have, because I don't go, I'm not doing what I used to do, where I had an entire house full of toys, because that was cool, but to be honest, it became more fatigue. And I was actually happy that I got rid of some of that stuff, because it's allowed me to be able to focus more on things I really care about, and allows me to just enjoy life better. Not have to worry about, well, what's going to happen to this or what's going to happen to that. Because everybody's got this whole thing like, oh, what's going to happen if I pass away with all this stuff that I have? What's going to happen to all this stuff? I don't know. I just hope it ends up in someone else's hands and somebody enjoys it. That's it. That's honestly, that's kind of how I feel about this stuff. Because the fact is, nothing lasts forever. That's the truth. But the thing is, I'm going to try to have as much fun with what I've got, and create some cool stuff for you guys as time progresses. And I know, like I said, this is another vlog type of thing, but I wanted to show you guys a few of the little projects I had been working on the side, so that way you guys can check out some of the other stuff I have going on. I do have photos and such I do put up on my Facebook. I don't do Twitter or any of that, but I do have a Twitter account. Sometimes I think when I post something, it might go there, but I don't actively use Twitter. Same thing on YouTube, obviously, I put up stuff. And I thought about creating a Newgrounds thing, because I don't know how Newgrounds really works. It's a new platform out there I kind of started looking into, because there's a lot of people out there that's been using it to try to share some of their stuff, but not really video-wise. It's been more like photography, or custom comics, or even like, well, what we used to call Adobe Flash, considering Adobe Flash isn't a thing anymore, but it's more or less Flash animation, I like to call that stuff. But, I'm not that versed in that kind of thing. It's something that I leave to other people, because they're more tech savvy when it comes to that thing. Anyhow, this has been Plasticon. This has been another little quick vlog just to kind of show you guys what I've been up to. And I will talk to you guys later. And that's it for now. Bye!